Liam's Map. This two-time Grade 1 winner posted 6 consecutive 100-plus buyer figures, including a 1:14 in the Grade 1 Woodward Stakes, the fastest winning time in more than a decade. An $800,000 yearling, he never finished off the board in 8 starts, winning 6. In his final race, this great colt set the track records at Keeneland in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. All this adds up to a world-class stallion at a world-class stallion farm.
Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. The DRF race of the day for Saturday, November the 3rd. Well, of course, it's the Breeders' Cup Classic, race number 11 at Churchill Downs. $6 million is the purse. Let's take a look at this field. Our coverage is presented by Liam's Map, the nice young stallion standing at Lane's End. You can access free Formulator Pass performances for the Breeders' Cup Classic on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Download them, handicap along with us. We'll take the field in post-position order, beginning with the Dubai World Cup winner, the number 1 Thunder Snow, hard-trying second last time out in the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup. Thought all in all, he got a pretty good trip behind a fast pace and just couldn't punch it in. I guess the argument could be made, Matt, that the last run was the best run in that race, and Thunder Snow didn't make the last run.
Yeah, I don't think he ran. I don't think anyone's making the case that he ran poorly, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as many people are making it out to be, that he didn't get the job done, given the fact that that pace did heat up. He really kind of was made the first move, especially when you consider that Discreet Lover came over the top and got the job done. And also keep in mind, that was his second start off the bench, and that was nothing more than a means to an end to get to this spot here, to get to the Breeders' Cup Classic. I don't. Look, I don't think he's the most likely winner of this race. I picked him 4th, but I could certainly see a scenario where he ends up being closer to the pace, where I would imagine it's going to be a little bit more tepid than the fractions were in the Jockey Club, considering they went just unbelievably fast. I think there's a real scenario where he wins this race. I wouldn't be stunned at all if he did.
Oh, I think he fits very well, and he's got that tactical speed. We saw the speed he showed in the Dubai World Cup, taking advantage of the speed and rail bias. He can sit from off the pace if needs be, and he has an inside post position where he has at least enough tactical speed to sort of avoid the crush of horses that are going to be trying to save some ground as they pass under the Twin Spires for the first time. Coming in from Europe is one of the classiest runners over there, and that's the number 2 Roaring Lion, entering this race off 4 consecutive Group 1 victories on turf. Now, 1.25 miles isn't going to be a problem. The question is the surface. He's by Kitten's Joy, internationally renowned turf stallion, and I don't think John Gosden was happy with this post. I think the last thing he wants is Roaring Lion to experience kickback early and often.
Yeah, and guess what? He's going to be getting that, because he just doesn't have the kind of speed early on to really be able to get up there and establish some sort of early position. Even given the fact that he's surrounded by horses that aren't necessarily front runners, he's still not as fast naturally, I don't believe, as they are. And, I go back to what we discussed about in one of the Breeders' Cup focuses a couple weeks back. Name the last good Kitten's Joy horse that ran on dirt. I can't think of one, especially at this level. If you believe maybe this year is the year that there's going to be some turbulence and you can take a shot against the favorites, maybe that's going to be the case and Roaring Lion can get it done. I think he's very talented. I don't like him on dirt.
Well, Turf to Dirt has been kind of one of the stories in this handicap division. We've seen Yoshida and we've seen Roaring Lion's next door neighbor, the number 3 Catholic Boy, who was a 2-time Grade 1 stakes winner at this 1.25 mile distance, winning the Belmont Derby on the grass, then successfully switching back to the dirt to win the Travers by 4 lengths over Mendelssohn, who's also in this field. Now, that 104 buyer speed figure, I think you question it a little bit. Timeform US doesn't have the Travers as that fast of a race, but this is a good horse. Breaking from post 3, Javier's going to have to use his speed a little bit to get a position, but I don't think he needs the lead, and he showed in that Remsen race, his coming out party last year, that he can come from out of it.
I like this horse. I mean, he's very, very talented. There's really not a lot to knock about him. He's a Grade 1 winner on turf, a Grade 1 winner on dirt. The distance is right in his wheelhouse. The only thing, and you kind of alluded to it, the only thing that's still sticking with me, and I guess it's sort of a blanket statement I can throw over all the 3-year-olds, sans Mackenzie. I'm not totally convinced that the 3-year-olds are as talented or as fast as the older horses are at this point. Now, again, this time of year, they can certainly take that step forward, and if anyone's going to, why not Catholic Boy? There's just a part of me, keep in mind, he also missed a little bit of time with training leading up to this spot, and he hasn't run since the Travers. I think he's a very logical contender. I wouldn't want too short a price.
One of these days, Gunnevera is going to get the pace and trip, and he's going to get there. He is a true one-run closer. He's a bit pace dependent. He is a bit trip dependent. He is capable of running big races. We saw that last year when second in the Travers. We saw that when third in the Florida Derby and an impressive winner of the Fountain of Youth. Last time out in the Woodward, he came with a big late run. It just wasn't enough against Yoshida. Antonio Sano is a very underrated trainer. Gunnevera is a horse that has credentials to win this race. He's going to be a price. Does he get the right setup?
He may get the pace he needs. I'm just still not totally convinced that he is truly of the grade 1 caliber. And I just kind of look at that Woodward, and I know the Woodward, you've already had a number of horses exit that race to run well, and some of them even win. But I kind of feel like if you're looking for a horse coming out of that race with a little bit of a closer's running style, don't you want Yoshida? Don't you want the winner, the horse that soundly defeated him that day? At least I do. That's the way that I'm looking at it. Gunnevera is honest as the day is long. I just kind of feel like a minor award is his ceiling.
Big price expected for the number 5, Lone Sailor. This horse won the Oklahoma Derby last time out by a nose hair, and he had a very, very fast-paced scenario to help him in that spot, only with an 88 Beyer speed figure. He's a deserving long shot. Tom Amoss, though, has a decent enough record over the past 5 years, with last-out winners off of a small layoff in graded stakes dirt routes, 30%, a 547 ROI. This horse might be the biggest price in the race. He's going to need a very fast pace and a lot of things to happen because from a Beyer standpoint, it's a little slow.
Yeah, I personally would have put him in the dirt mile. I think he fit a little bit better in a spot like that. And even there, he would have been probably a double-digit kind of price in a spot like this. I think the Connections will be thrilled if they can get a piece. And even that, to be honest, I just think that's kind of a long shot. Bob
Baffert trained horses are in the next 2 gates. The 6 Mackenzie with Mike Smith aboard at 6-1. The 7 West Coast, Johnny Velasquez aboard at 5-1. Mackenzie, I think, is going to be sort of the hot wise guy horse coming into this Breeders' Cup Classic. Before he got injured, a lot of folks thought that he could be on a level with a horse like Justify as 3-year-olds in the Baffert barn. He missed time after that San Felipe. He came back in the Pennsylvania Derby, and he had to overcome a lot. Long layoff, first-time mile and an eighth. He won very, very nicely in fast time with a 107 Beyer, and he's going to be close to this pace. Mike Smith chose him.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head for the piece for me that at least makes me reconsider my initial thoughts about him. Is he ran fast. That clocking for that Pennsylvania Derby, no matter how you chop it up, whichever figures you use, whether they're Beyer, time form, or something else, that race has come back fast, basically universally. My only sort of nagging concern with Mackenzie is how far does he actually want to go? Does he want that extra eighth of a mile? I thought it was peculiar, and I go back to it, and I'm going to just keep grinding it into the ground. Baffert immediately after that race said, oh, the Classic or the Clark Handicap. And on the heels of an effort like that in the Pennsylvania Derby with figures like that, you don't normally hear someone like Baffert say, maybe not the biggest race that we have in the United States. Maybe we'll go to the Clark, which is a nice race, no disrespect, but it's not in the same category as the Classic. So it made me think that perhaps he's not totally convinced about that mile and a quarter either. But from a talent standpoint, I think he's just as good, if not better, than anybody else in this field.
His next-door neighbor, his stablemate, West Coast, also one of the more talented horses in this race, to be sure. A Travers winner, a Pennsylvania Derby winner, third in the Breeders' Cup Classic as a 3-year-old, second in the Peggy World Cup, second in the Dubai World Cup. And last time out in the Awesome Again, he had a lot of excuses. It was his first start off of a long layoff. He was contesting a very fast pace against the best handicap horse in the country in Accelerate, and he was far from disgrace. Now, the Awesome Again did not come back a fast race. Accelerate only earned a 100, but we know that West Coast has big figs in him, and if he gets back to one of those races, the Breeders' Cup Classic from last year, he's going to be tough. Interested in your thoughts on this Timeform U.S. pace scenario, because they've got West Coast out there on the lead, and I'm not really sure that's his best game. I know he went gate to wire in the Travers. Maybe John Velasquez will be aggressive. I kind of think Mackenzie's going to be out there with Mendelssohn.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that's his best game, and I do wonder if the pace projector is using much of that most recent run, that Awesome Again, as sort of the indicator, because like you said, they went very fast that day. Look at those Timeform ratings from a pace standpoint, 143, 138, all color-coded red. I mean, they were going out there and winging it, so they had every right to get tired at the end. To me, the key to the Breeders' Cup Classic this year is, what do you think of the Awesome Again? Are you making the argument that it was a deep, tiring track, they went fast, and you know that West Coast and Accelerate are capable of much better than that, and if they run one of their best races, they're simply probably faster than everyone else? Or are you looking at it the other way, saying, they crawled home, how can I possibly be betting horses at short prices coming out of an effort like that? after a long sort of thought process, I'm going with the latter. I look at it and go, you gotta finish a little bit better than that than they did in the Awesome again. And for me, I'm fading both of them.
If you like horses for courses, why not Pavel, who scored in the Stephen Foster way back in June at Churchill Downs. Best performance of his career, arguably. 101 Beyer speed figure. This horse has good tactical speed. The problem is Accelerate just whipped him in his subsequent start, the Pacific Classic. He is coming into this race fresh off a 2.5-month layoff.
I do wonder a little bit if Pavel's starting to fit the sort of mold of my son Opportunity, where take a look at his races in Southern California versus his races outside of Southern California. Far and away, the best races he's run have come away from Santa Anita and Del Mar. He's done quite well in New York and Pennsylvania and Kentucky. I suppose if you think he can get back to the Stephen Foster, he's got a puncher's chance in here. I don't love his chances, but maybe you could use him underneath.
I wonder if Mendelssohn's coming back into his best form for Aiden O'Brien. We saw him dominate a weak field in the UAE Derby when he had everything go his own way on the lead on an inside speed favoring track. Didn't like the slop in the Derby, fine, but he bombed in the Dwyer, and I thought he was fairly disappointing in the Travers when Catholic Boy ran right by him, but he showed a lot of fight in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and I guess if I wanted to take a horse coming out of the Jockey Club, it'd be Mendelssohn, because he pressed the very fast Diversify, put that horse away, and was fighting all the way down to the wire.
Yeah, I look at him in similar ways that you do. The Dwyer, I was terribly disappointed, and I don't care that it's a one-turn mile and maybe that's not what he wants. I thought he was terrible that day. The Travers, I thought he ran really well, and I just think that just goes to show how good Catholic Boy actually is. But the Jockey Club, I thought he ran a monster race that day, considering the fractions were fast. He went after Diversify, put him away, and was still hanging around at the end. And I know a lot of people have said, oh, well, he had the perfect trip. He sat just off that horse. He went unbelievably fast. He himself went 45.98 for the half mile. That's a sprint fraction in some races. So the fact that he did that going 10, I think speaks volumes. But I go back to what I spoke about with Catholic Boy. There's a part of me that wonders, are these 3-year-olds just not quite fast enough to be running with the older horses at this point? I think they're all going to need to take a step forward, with the exception of Mackenzie.
Like Catholic Boy, the number 10 Yoshida, Grade 1 winner this year on both dirt and turf. Handled dirt last time out in the Grade 1 Woodward. Got a nice pace set up, but this horse was just flying home on the outside. He's got a lot of dirt on the bottom of his pedigree. And that Woodward, I think we kind of looked at that race cockeyed. He's beaten 4 next out winners now. It just continues to be a very, very good race. If Yoshida gets pace, he could easily win. It's that wide open of a classic.
Yeah, and depending on who you listen to down here in Louisville, Yoshida is apparently making a very, very good impression in the mornings. Looks like he's really hulked up and looks like he's ready to run his best. I've even kind of talked myself into using him underneath. I was against that Woodward as a whole, but I love the way that he finished, and that was really my only kind of question was it an optical illusion? Did he just beat poor horses and he was just finishing better than they were? Or was it actually him really running a big, big race? From a speed figure standpoint, it was certainly on the slower side. He's going to need to run faster, but I think he gets some pace to run at 10 furlongs. I'm not concerned about that. I think he is a little bit interesting in a race like this.
One of the most popular horses in training is the number 11, Mind Your Biscuits, a New York bred that is a 2-time Group 1 winner at 6 furlongs overseas. Winner of the Dubai Golden Shaheen in both 2017, 2018. It's been a long, winding road for Mind Your Biscuits. They said, well, he's only a sprinter. Then he ran such big races in last year's Cigar Mile and the Met Mile, running second both times. Then it was, well, you can't get a mile and an eighth, and he proved last time out in the Grade 3 Lucas Classic at Churchill Downs. A mile and an eighth is no problem. He's coming into this race off 3 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures. We know he's as consistent as the day is long. Can he get that 10th furlong?
Well, I mean, really, that's kind of the question for a horse like this. I like the way that he galloped out in that Lucas Classic. Now, again, he didn't really beat anything in there. Toast of New York was on the AE list. He was sort of the name in there, the second other sort of the alternative. And guess what? Toast of New York's run 3 times in 4 years. So he certainly beat an inferior sort of group that day. But we know on his best day what he's capable of. And I guess the thing for me with Mind Your Biscuits, as opposed to anyone else in this field, I feel like on Saturday, you're going to get an honest effort out of him. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe he doesn't want the distance ultimately. But I think you're probably going to get a mid-100 sort of Beyer. Sometimes it'll be good enough. Sometimes it won't be. Whereas some of these other horses, what are we going to get off layoffs? What are we going to get off surface changes? What are we going to get stretching out in distance? I just feel like Mind Your Biscuits is the most consistent horse in the race. And I think the fact that he's won at Churchill Downs, I don't think that's something that can be overlooked.
I think flying under the radar at a very big price is the 12 Axelrod. I'm not sure he can win. but I think he has an opportunity to hit the board and make your tries and supers. He just continues to improve for trainer Mike McCarthy. He won the Grade 3 Smarty Jones, and he did not have an easy trip doing it, and he just blew those horses away. It kind of signaled that he was going to run in the Pennsylvania Derby, and he did. He just happened to run into Mackenzie. He was in and among horses. He followed Mackenzie on the turn. He had a big shot at him, it looked like, at the 3/16 pole. Mackenzie ran away from him, which makes me wonder about the 1.25 miles. I would have loved to have seen Axelrod in the dirt mile. I would have thought he had a great shot in that race. But I think this horse continues to get better for a good trainer in Mike McCarthy. I'm not going to overlook Axelrod. I think this might be a little too tough.
Yeah, and I don't love the fact that Mackenzie was getting away from him again at the end of that Pennsylvania Derby. And like you say, now you got to go an extra 1/8 of a mile. It doesn't necessarily scream to me, based on pedigree and the way that he runs, that the distance is going to be his friend. I think he's going to turn into a very nice 4-year-old. I think he's a really talented animal. And again, if you're looking at a big price and you want to use somebody underneath, I wouldn't be opposed to using Axelrod in 3rd or 4th.
A lot of folks are going to be rooting for Discreet Lover. It's a true rags to riches story. Came from way off the pace, aided by that blistering pace in the Jockey Club Gold Cup to get the Grade 1 win. He's now earned triple-digit buyers in 2 out of his last 3 races. He was 45-1 in the Jockey Club. He's going to be a similar price, you would think, in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and they're hoping for another big pace.
Yeah, really, that's what it boils down to. It's a cool story. Uriah St. Louis goes out there, and obviously this horse dances every dance. You're going to hope for a big pace. You're going to hope for a meltdown and hope that he comes with that big run. The 1.25 miles, certainly not an issue for him. To me, I think a minor award is his ceiling, and more likely than not, I think he's probably going to finish mid-pack. But it's a great story, and you hope nothing for the best.
Completing this classic field, the number 14, Accelerate. And listen, he's been the best older horse in the country. You could make the argument the 2nd best horse overall behind Justify. Some might say he's number 1 ranked over Justify. This horse has just been dominant this year in 2018. 1 hiccup in the Oaklawn handicap. 1.25 miles has been no issue. How much, A, does this post position bother you? And how much does the 15-point reduction in the Awesome Again bother you, with some of the weird shenanigans behind the gate where he was reluctant, and then the slow break, which sometimes can be an indicator that a horse is going off form? Has he danced too many dances coming into the Classic and he's slightly going downhill, or does just simply the best Accelerate put him right there at the wire?
You know, the 14 post doesn't bother me at all, because this horse has a little bit of tactical ability. I think Rosario, you've got plenty of time. Keep in mind, they're breaking out of the chute. You're going to have forever and a day before you get it into the first turn. I think Rosario is going to have the opportunity to get over and work out some kind of a trip. I'm more concerned about what happened in that Awesome Again, because it's not just the performance. And look, he ran really well, all things considered. Winning by over 2 lengths. He was wide every step of the way. It was the regression from a speed figure standpoint back to a 100. It was the way that he finished, and it was the way that, more importantly for me, the way that he was acting beforehand. This is usually a very professional horse, goes out there, takes everything in stride. He didn't want to load into the gate. When he finally did load into the gate, he was throwing his head about, and that's just not what this horse has ever done. And now perhaps that was the bounce. And I know some people don't prescribe to the bounce theory, but he ran off the charts in the Pacific Classic. And maybe that was sort of the regression. And now we're going to get back to that P Classic effort. If he runs the Pacific Classic, he's winning this race to me. I don't think there's much question about it. I just think that there is a question, is he going to run that race or not?
And you know he's going to get bet. Morning line favorite is Accelerate, deservedly so, off a tremendous campaign. Pick time for the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Classic. Such a wide open race. You're going with the 11 Mind Your Biscuits, Chad Summers trainee. We know he's got the class to win this race. It's whether he can get the 1.25 miles. I'm using 3 horses in this race. Mind Your Biscuits is one of them.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he's got a little bit of versatility as well. I think he's probably going to be mid-pack in a race like this, similar to that trip in the Luke's Classic. And I like that he's run over Churchill Downs and he's had success. I like the way that he galloped out. It gives me the indication that perhaps the 10th furlong not going to be an issue. And again, if you have some little questions like I do about some of the other major players in a spot like this, are the 3-year-olds fast enough? Does Mackenzie want 10 furlongs? Is Accelerate over the top? Is West Coast over the top? I just think he's the most consistent horse in the race. And again, whether it's good enough or not, we'll find out on Saturday. But he also should be a decent price. I think he's 6-1 on the morning line. I'd expect him to be closer to 8-1 come post time.
Give me numbers.
11, 6, 10, 1.
Catholic Boy, I know, is going to get the 1.25 miles. It's a question mark for horses like Mind Your Biscuits. It's a question mark for horses like Mackenzie. We know he'll get the 1.25 miles. I need Javier to break well, sort of try to get a position in behind horses in the second flight and hopefully get a clear run. We'll see if he's good enough. He's just shown a lot of class and determination and versatility this year for Jonathan Thomas, and he's going to be a price. I'm going to use Mackenzie. I mean, I've been trying to beat him, it seems, all year long, and he just keeps winning and winning training and winning. He's fast. He's going to be up there among the early leaders, I think, and should be prominent turning into the stretch. And I got to use Mind Your Biscuits because, boy, he showed me a lot in that 1 1/8 race. As you said, he may not have beaten much, but he did it the right way, and it looks like he's coming into this race the right way. He's very, very consistent. I'm going 3, 6, 11. I'll use a little bit of Axelrod underneath. That's the 12 in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Classic. It's your DRF Saturday race of the day. Approximate post time 5:44 Eastern, and our coverage is presented by Liam's Map at Lane's End.